Congratulations, you've just found the #1 over 50 health and wellness podcast on the planet. Hello and welcome to the Over 50 Health and Wellness Show. I'm your host, Kevin English. I'm a healthy aging expert and founder of The Silver Edge, and I am on a mission to help men and women just like you build lean, strong, healthy, capable bodies they love for the rest of their lives. Okay, folks, so you want to get a six-pack in time for summer vacation, or maybe you're just curious what it takes to get a sculpted midsection, a sculpted physique. Well, let me tell you, you're in the right place. So let's talk about why you might want to get a six-pack, and specifically a six-pack by summer. And I think the answer is pretty obvious, right? It's a flex. A six-pack is a status symbol. When you see a man or woman with that kind of tight midsection, those washboard abs, we know that that person is dedicated. That person earned those. You cannot buy six-pack, or I don't know, maybe you could have some kind of crazy surgery and have an implant in this day and age. But for the most part, you cannot buy a six-pack, right? It is a status symbol and it must be earned. There's hard work and dedication that goes into walking around with that kind of a look, that lean athletic aesthetic. So I think it's pretty obvious. Six-packs they're cool. They're sexy. It's a good look. We romanticize them and certainly all of our media, our social media, Hollywood, all of that stuff, right? But let's just talk about what is it going to take for you to have visible abs. So for us guys, for men, you're going to need to be under 10% body fat. And now there's a little bit of variation. Some of you are going to show abs at, say, maybe 11%. Some of you won't see a peak of abs until you get to 8%. Just know there's some variation there. But in general, for guys, we'll need to be sub 10% body fat. For you ladies, you're going to need to be sub 20% body fat. Again, there's some variation in there. Now, as a frame of reference, let's think about the models that we see on the front covers of fitness magazines or maybe online in your favorite fitness influencer. Those models are typically, the guys are usually somewhere around 6-ish% body fat, and those ladies, they're going to be around 15-16% body fat. So pretty extreme. And we get even more extreme when we start to look at like competitive bodybuilders. So ladies who are getting up on stage and posing in these bodybuilding shows will get as low as 10% body fat. And some of these guys that you see with these really extreme physiques, they're at 3 and 4% body fat. So really, really extreme aesthetics there when we start looking at, say, competitive bodybuilders. That is all the way over on one side of six-pack abs, and then just more the casual, hey, I'd just like to have, some visible abs when I go to the beach this summer. That's going to be, not nearly as extreme. Okay, so there's a framework for what we're talking about when we say visible abs. Dudes are going to need to be sub 10%, ladies probably sub 20%, somewhere there. So that's our definition, that's our target. That's what we're going to aim for when we say, hey, I want to have some washboard abs when I go on vacation this summer. Now, before we start, and I tell you exactly what you need to do in order to get this ripped six-pack before summer, let me try and talk you out of six-pack abs. So before I tell you exactly what to do, let me try and talk you out of even going down this road to begin with. And first things first, having six-pack abs is really, really freaking difficult. In other words, you can't lead a normal life. You can't have, a lot of times on this show we talk about, well, there's the 80-20 rule. If 80% of the time you're making healthy choices that honor your body, and 20% of the time you're just doing things that you enjoy that maybe aren't necessarily honoring your healthy aging journey, but, you have the cake, have the pizza, have the glass of wine, whatever. Well, we throw all that out the window when we start talking about six-pack abs and getting, guys sub 10%, ladies sub 20%. You pretty much can't have a quote-unquote normal life. You are, just as table stakes, you are going to weigh, measure, and track everything you eat and drink from here on to in your journey to your six-pack. And you're basically going to filter all of your life decisions based on whether this thing, whatever it is going to lead you towards six-pack abs or away from six-pack abs. So that's basically the filter that you're going to look at all food, all decisions of what to do with friends, where you want to go hang out, what you want to do this weekend. In other words, you don't have a whole lot of life balance. So It is difficult to get six-pack abs. So that's the first thing I'm going to say as I'm trying to talk you out of this goal of having six-pack abs for this summer. Know that you're really going to have to be dedicated. This is going to be difficult. Parts of this are not going to be fun. Now, the next reason I want to try and talk you out of getting six-pack abs by this summer is that this is not particularly a healthy endeavor. So when we look at the body of literature that talks about healthy body fat levels, for us guys, that's going to be, depending on who you're looking at, but roughly between 12 and 16% body fat is really optimal for long-term longevity and health. And for you ladies, that's going to be between 22 and 26% body fat. So that's going to be higher than most of us are going to show abs. I don't know many guys that are going to show visible abs, certainly not spectacular abs at 12% body fat. You might see maybe a glimmer on somebody who's, genetically gifted of a six-pack at 12%, but probably not. And same thing for ladies at 22%. Going to be tough to see that. And the lower your body fat, the less healthy you are. And I know that this is kind of counter to what media has led us to believe. We see all these stunning ripped bodies with these perfect washboard abs, and we assume that they are the pinnacle of health. But in fact, what they are the pinnacle of is an extreme aesthetic, not extreme health. And we're going to talk a little bit about, we're going to pull some of this apart about why that might be as we go through this. But just know that when you see that guy with just absolute gorgeous ripped abs, or that lady with that washboard stomach, that is in fact an extreme aesthetic, and it is not in fact indicative of extreme health. And in fact, having too low of body fat is just as unhealthy, if not more unhealthy, than having excess body fat. And in fact, when we get too low in body fat, this leads to things like impaired immune functions, or your immune system starts to break down. We have bone weakening, bone loss, and our hormones start to get unbalanced, especially our sex hormones. So for guys, that means loss of libido, low testosterone. For you ladies, certainly younger ladies are going to lose their period as they start to get really low in body fat. As you menopausal and postmenopausal ladies know, you're already dealing with some hormone imbalances, right? In that stage of life, well, that's just going to get a lot worse as you get especially as you get low, into that 15, 16% body fat or even lower. Just know that there's going to be some health consequences there. Okay, so with those disclaimers out of the way, if you still want six-pack abs, here's how to go about it. Now, full disclaimer, I am recording this in mid-March of 2024. I do not currently have six-pack abs. I'm sitting right here recording this right now, and I'm at about 11.5% body fat. And maybe in some perfect gym lighting, you can see the outline of my six-pack, but it's not a poppin' six-pack. But for now, I'm pretty happy right here at 11.5%. It's not particularly difficult to maintain, and I'm leading a more or less normal, happy life. There's ice cream, pizza, things like that in my life. I'm not currently tracking my calories, so I'm not really obsessing over my food. I'm kind of eating intuitively, if you will. Now, look, I am a nutrition coach. I'm a personal trainer. I've been doing this for a long time, so I've got this pretty well wired when it comes to just maintaining where I am. But just full disclaimer, I do not have a six-pack right now. I'm not walking around with ripped washboard abs. I am lean and athletic, but just wanted to throw that out there. Now, I will say that the first time I had six-pack abs in my adult life, I was in my 50s. So those of you that heard my story know that in my 40s, I just crash and burn from a metabolic health standpoint, ended up being very, very unhealthy, landed myself in a hospital for a few days. That was the catalyst to me sort of on this journey to where I am now today at age almost 61 here. But somewhere in my 50s, I finally started to put all the pieces together. I figured out that strength training instead of constant cardio was a better way for me to be healthy and to look good, frankly, to lose body fat and to build muscle. I figured out that, hey, you know what? If I quit eating so much crap and quit drinking so much, that was going to positively impact my body composition. And so I got really super obsessed with eating clean and working out because I felt great and I looked great. And I got really, really dialed in. And at my lowest body percentage, I was probably right around 8, maybe just slightly under 8% body fat. So very lean, very ripped, and very much popping six-pack abs. At 8%, I had certainly what you would describe as washboard abs. So I've had that a couple of times since then. I'm certainly within striking range. We're going to talk about that here in just a minute. Right now, to go for this summer, and who knows, maybe I'll change my mind. But as of right now, don't have six-pack abs, and that's pretty much by by conscious choice. Okay, but you're not here to listen to me talk about my six-pack or lack thereof right now. You want washboard abs by this summer. So before we start talking about exactly what you need to do, here's a couple of prerequisites. In other words, these things must be true in order for you to have six-pack abs this summer. Number one, you got to be within striking distance. Number two, you've got to be metabolically healthy. And number three, you got to be all in. You got to be 100% committed. You got to be in it to win it. So let's pull each of these apart a little bit. So number one is you've got to be within striking distance. And by that, I mean, if you're a guy and you're 20% body fat, the chances of you being sub 10% body fat in the next, say, 8 to 12 weeks, even 16 weeks, that's a stretch. While maybe you could do it, you probably shouldn't from a metabolic health standpoint. That's just too drastic of a change in body composition. So just know that when I say you've got to be within striking distance, I mean that if you've got 30, 40, 50 pounds to lose, you're probably not within striking distance of six. You can certainly 100% have six-pack abs. I would make that my target for next summer and not this summer and have that long-term strategic approach to that. But you're not within striking distance for this summer. So that's number one. You got to be within striking distance. And by that, I mean, look, if you're sitting at 15, 16% body fat as a guy or 24, 25% as a lady, you're probably within striking distance. So anywhere from a lady being, say, 25 to 20, you're in striking distance. A guy between 10 and 15, you're within striking distance. Number two prerequisite is you've got to be metabolically healthy. And there's a number of ways we can measure this, but really what I want to measure this by is, are you eating lots of food? In other words, is your maintenance calories really, really high? The amount of food that you need to eat every day without gaining or losing weight, is that a big number, a medium number, or a low number? If it's a medium number or a low number, you're not in striking distance of six-pack abs. While you could get six-pack abs if you're not eating tons and tons of foods. In other words, if your metabolism isn't just roaring along, you probably shouldn't. In fact, I would strongly say you shouldn't. You're just going to do too much metabolic damage in order to get let's face it, just an aesthetic goal. You're going to do way more damage than that's going to be worth. So if you're not eating lots of food, let's talk about what that means. So if you're a lady and you're not currently eating a minimum of 2,000 calories, and now look, if you're a little petite lady, you might get away with eating 2,000 calories. If you're a normal sized woman, you should probably be eating 2,400 calories before you even consider dieting down to that sub 20% body fat. So that's our benchmark there for our ladies. For you guys, if you're not eating, and again, if you're a smaller dude, maybe you'll get away with eating 2,500 calories at the beginning of this as your maintenance calories, but I'd love to see you, if you're a normal sized guy, I'd love to see you closer to 3,000 calories before you decide that you're going to go on this journey here and diet for the next 8, 12, 16 weeks, however long that's going to be, in order to get down to that sub 10% body fat. So there you go. You got to be within striking distance. You got to be metabolically healthy, and you should be eating lots of food today, because that's going to give you a good starting place, and you're going to see why here in just a minute. And then number three, you got to be all in, 100% committed. You're in it to win it. You're going to need to basically obsess over food and exercise for the next, let's just call it 16 weeks, right? For the next 3 months, you're just going to really need to be dialed in on this. And that means you're going to give up on a lot of things. So if on the weekends you like to hang out with the guys and go watch a game and maybe have some pizza and beers or some wings or nachos, that's not in the prescription for six-pack abs. Throw that out. We're not doing. You could still go with the guys and hang out if you have the discipline to just drink water, but that's all out. Going to your kid's birthday party, you're going to have a bite of birthday cake instead of a slice of birthday cake. Just things like that. Just know that you're going to be. Your lifestyle is definitely going to be a little bit cramped. Certainly your social life is going to be, if you are 100% all in on, hey, I want six-pack abs this summer. All right, so there's our prerequisites. Got to be within striking distance. Got to be eating tons of food right now, and you got to be in it to win it. You got to be 100% committed here. So with those prerequisites checked off, it's time to get to work. Let's go. What are we going to do in order to build popping, head-turning six-pack abs here by this summer? And basically, there's three main pillars when it comes to getting shredded abs. That's going to be, probably no surprise to you guys, it's going to be nutrition, exercise, and lifestyle. So let's start with nutrition. if you want six-pack abs, you're going to need to be in a calorie deficit. You're going to need to be in a cut. You're going to need to go on a diet, in other words. So you may have heard the saying that abs aren't built in the gym, but they're built in the kitchen. And this is absolutely 100% true. Visible abs come from removing the layer of fat around the abs to allow those ab muscles to really pop and to show. So when we talk about a six-pack, of course, we're talking about those abdominal muscles right down the middle of your midsection there. And we've got to remove as much fat as possible in order for those to show. So you're going to need to be in a calorie deficit. Now, the next question should be, well, how big of a calorie deficit? How much? What's a starting place? So we're going to start with a 15 to 20% calorie deficit. Now, this, of course, assumes that you know what your current maintenance calories are. So if you don't know that, you should not. You should go no further in your quest for six-pack abs. You should stop, figure out what your current maintenance calories are. Best way to do that is to weigh, measure, and track everything you eat and drink for at least a week. Take an average of those daily calories. So you got 7 days, let's say, of tracking of total calories. Add them all together, divided by 7. There's your maintenance calories. And this also assumes that that your weight is fairly stable, that you're neither losing nor gaining weight. So you need to know what your current maintenance calories are. And then from there, we want to take about a 15 to 20% calorie deficit or a cut from that. So from here on forward, so in other words, from today, you're saying, yes, I want six-pack abs. From now until when you get your six-pack abs, let's just get used to, let's break out our digital scale. Let's make sure our measuring cups and tablespoons and all that are clean, because we're going to weigh, measure, track all of our food and our drink. So let's just use me as an example. I think that's probably the easiest way to walk through this. Today, I sit right at 190 pounds. I'm at just under 11.5%, but we'll just say 11.5% is my body fat today. And my maintenance calories are 3,200 calories. So when I eat 3,200 calories a day, when I average that over a week, I'm not going to gain a pound. I'm not going to lose a pound. That's my maintenance calories. So I meet all of our prerequisites. I'm within striking distance. I have a healthy metabolism, and that's reflected by me eating a lot of food, 3,200 calories, pretty decent amount of food. And let's just say I'm dedicated to the goal. This is what I want. This is my mission for this summer, is to get ripped, have six-pack abs. Okay, so we said we wanted to make a cut. If I want six-pack abs, and we're starting with nutrition, the first thing I got to do is go into a calorie deficit. I want 15 to 20% of 3,200 calories. So 15% of 3,200 is 480 calories, 20% is 640. So we're going to go conservative. We'll just use a nice round number. I'm going to start my cut with a 500 calorie deficit. So I'm eating 3,200 calories today. Starting tomorrow, starting my cut, I'm going to eat 2,700 calories every single day. And look, here's where I'm really starting to dial things in. I don't want to eat, 2,500 calories one day, 2,900 calories the next day, and that averages to 2,700. I'm really trying to hit 2,700 calories every single day. So I am obsessing over food. I'm weighing, measuring, and tracking, making sure I'm getting right to that 2,700 calories. So that's how much food I'm going to eat. Next up is, what do I eat? And of course, if you guys have been around here for any length of time, the rules aren't changing here. I'm eating primarily whole food. So I want to be eating clean. Don't want to be eating a lot of processed food. In fact, I want to be eating very little processed food. We're going to throw 80-20 out the window. We're going to go 95-5. So 95% of my food is coming from real whole foods. And 5% is maybe, I might have a slice of bread for a sandwich, and maybe for my cheeseburger one day on my cheat meal or whatever. And I want my protein to be really high. So we want protein to be 1 gram of protein per pound of ideal body weight. For our purposes, let's just use a round number. I'm going to get 200 grams of protein every day. So high protein and as clean as possible, meaning lots of clean, low-fat meats, lots of veggies, fruits, my starches, my healthy oils, my healthy fats, so things like avocados, olive oils, of course, my salmon, my sardines, things like that. That's primarily what I'm eating, lots of eggs, stuff like that. So that's how much I'm eating, and that's what I'm eating in order to get my six-pack abs. So how much weight should I expect to lose? And now, before we talk about what a reasonable weight loss rate is, remember, I want to lose fat, not weight. That's a very important distinction here. So the number on the scale is only one piece of info, and to be honest, it's of limited use, but it is one piece of information that's a part of this puzzle. But what I want to see is about a pound of week average, and that's a pretty good rule of thumb. Any more than that, and I'm certainly losing muscle as well as fat, and I don't want that. I want to hang on to my muscle at all costs. I want to lose fat, not muscle, right? So about a pound a week is a really good rule of thumb. Now, how long is this going to take? And the answer is, of course, it depends. It takes as long as it takes. We're all bio-individuals. We're all a little bit different. But at some point, my fat loss is going to plateau. Remember, my current maintenance calories are 3,200 calories. I cut 500 from that, and now I'm eating 2,700 calories. And let's say over the next 6 weeks, I'm really good. I'm dialed in. I'm eating high protein. I'm eating 95% real whole foods, just a little, here and there, a couple treats of processed foods. But I've been really dialed in on my 2,700 calories. What's going to happen is eventually, let's say that I'm losing a pound a week, right? So the first week I lose a pound, second week I lose a pound, third week, fourth week, a pound, fifth week I lose half a pound, sixth week, maybe the average weight loss. And by average, I mean I'm weighing myself every day and taking my weekly average of weights. That's what I'm tracking over time. Let's say it's a quarter pound. So what's happened is I have now plateaued. I'm eating 2,700 calories and I'm no longer losing weight. So in other words, my metabolism has adjusted to meet me where I am. It's down-regulated. So now 2,700 calories is my new maintenance calories. Remember, it was 3,200 calories 6 weeks ago. But I'm 6 weeks into this cut. I'm no longer losing weight. And let's just say, for example, I'm at 11.5% body fat when I start this. 6 weeks later, I'm at 10% body fat. All right. So I'm close, but not quite to my six-pack goals. And by now I definitely can, again, in good lighting, I've got visible abs, but it's not really a head-turning six-pack yet. So I'm at 10%. I'm eating 2,700 calories a day, but my weight loss is stalled. So my new maintenance calories are 2,700 calories. So at this point, I've got a couple of options. I can either increase my calories out or I can decrease my calories in. So in other words, I can either do more exercise, more calorie burn, or I can decrease my calories coming in. In other words, I can take another cut. So we're getting ready to talk about the calories outside of this equation, the exercise here in just a minute. So for now, let's just stick with nutrition strategies and let's just say that we're going to do a second cut. Okay, so I'm eating 2,700 calories. That's now my new maintenance. So remember we said if I want a cut here, I want to take 15 to 20% of my maintenance calories. All right, so from new math here, 2,700 calories, 15% is 405, 20% is 540. So I'm all in this. I'm in it to win it. I want to be aggressive. I go with another 500 calorie cut. So now I'm eating 2,200 calories. That's not fun. I went from eating 3,200 calories to 2,200 calories. So I'm 1,000 calories under what I was eating 6 weeks ago. And now you see why the prerequisite of having a healthy metabolism is so important before you start this. Had I been eating 2,500 calories when I started this, I'd be screwed. Six weeks in, I'd be eating sub 2,000 calories and I would stall and I'd really have nowhere to go. But I'm here, I'm eating 2,200 calories, I'm dedicated. And I tell myself, okay, 2,200 calories, this is going to suck, but I can do it. It's only for a few weeks. I'm like, seriously, I know that this isn't going to be fun. And I'm now starting to wade into slightly unhealthy waters. This is not an optimal amount of food for my health, but I'm chasing an extreme aesthetic as opposed to extreme health here, right? I want this popping, head-turning, six-pack abs. So at this point now, I'm eating 2,200 calories. I'm not going to lie. I'm pretty much hangry all the damn time. But my mood and energy are also starting to flag. My libido is dropping. My workouts are starting to feel difficult. In other words, I don't feel strong in the gym anymore. And to be honest, I'm not as much fun to be around, because I'm obsessing about food and workout and this ideal of having washboard abs, but also just because I'm feeling kind of run down and I'm just not on my A game. I've kind of lost a bit of my mojo here in this pursuit of six-pack abs. But on the other hand, it's working. I'm losing weight, I'm dropping body fat, the scale's going down, but most importantly, my jeans are looser. I'm able to click a new hole on my belt, and I'm starting to see that ab definition really start to pop a little bit now. And let's just say I go 4 weeks at 2,200 calories, and at the end of that time, I'm at 8% body fat, and I'm looking, frankly, pretty shredded. I'm not ready for a cover shoot of a fitness magazine or anything like that, but I've got legit abs. I've got that washboard stomach, and while I'm looking pretty scrawny and skinny when I'm in clothes, I look ripped when I'm shirtless. And that was really the aesthetic that I was chasing here. Okay, so that's the nutrition side. That took us about 10 weeks. Remember we said I think it was 6 weeks. I was eating 2,700 calories, and I did another 4 weeks where I was eating 2,200 calories. And now look, I could have been more or less, I suppose, conservative. I could have taken a longer time. I could have been more aggressive. But just in general, about 10 weeks to go from 11.5% body fat to 8% body fat. And I've done it. Mission accomplished, right? From a nutrition perspective. Now let's talk about what those 10 weeks look like from an exercise perspective. So know this, if all I did was the nutrition piece, so if all I did was diet for 10 weeks, I might have visible abs at the end of that, but not the strong, sexy, head-turning kind. Not at all. I'd be weak and scrawny. Because the problem is when we rely just on diet. So the problem is dieting alone without an exercise component would 100% cause me to lose muscle as well as body fat. In fact, that's probably the math on that's probably going to work out about 60% fat and 40% muscle. So in other words, I'd be weak, skinny, and frail looking as opposed to the exact opposite. What I want to look is my muscles to be popping, my abs to be popping, and to look lean and athletic and sexy and have this washboard abs. Instead, while I might show some weak abs in there, I'm really going to be skinny and frail at the end of that if all I do is cut my calories and then cut my calories again over a 10-week period. So when we cut our calories, we want to fight like hell to maintain that hard-won muscle on our bodies. And this is even more so true as we age up. So those of you in your 50s and 60s, this is way more true for you today than it would have been when you're in your 20s. That's just the reality. So we really have to fight like hell to maintain muscle in our body. And we do that through strength training. So continuing to use myself for an example, I would just continue exactly what I'm doing today, which is 3 weeks of full body strength training to maintain my muscle mass. So I'm not going to be, today I'm trying to build muscle, but when I'm in this cut, I'm not going to be building muscle. That's not going to happen because I'm just not giving the body the building blocks that it needs to build muscle. So I'm switching my focus from building muscle to maintaining muscle mass. And my main focus, of course, is on stripping away some of that fat. But I'm going to continue really fighting hard in my workouts because I want to give my central nervous system a reason to hang on to that muscle. Remember that type 2 muscle that we build through strength training is metabolically expensive, meaning it takes more calories just to keep it on your body at rest. So that's one of the many reasons why we want a little bit of extra muscle, or maybe even a lot of extra muscle on our bodies as we age, right? It's metabolically expensive, meaning that increases your metabolism, but we really want to prioritize strength training during this time. And again, I wouldn't really change up my workouts a whole lot. I'd probably switch up my programming a little bit just to have a fresh stimulus, but I'm not doing anything crazy, not going to 6 days a week of hour and a half long grinding workouts, anything like that. I'm just going to stick with 3 days a week, maybe an hour in the gym each time of full body strength training. Okay, so that's what I do for strength training. Next up for our exercise is walking. Yep, like plain old-fashioned walking. I'd be super, super intentional about getting 10,000 steps in every single day. I would never, ever miss. So this would be a non-negotiable. Just like you're being super dialed in on your nutrition, we're going to continue with our workouts. But let's say we're getting an average of 7,000 or 8,000 steps a day. Before we start this cut, we do not go to bed at night until we have a minimum of 10,000 walking steps in every single day. We don't want to miss that. If we want abs, we're going to need to be super disciplined. And this is one of the first places we're going to start, is making sure we have that intentional walking habit every single day. So we're getting a minimum of 10,000 steps every single day. And for the first week or two of my cut, that's really all the extra quote unquote cardio I'd add. Of course, walking's not, it's kind of cardio, it's kind of not, but that's really all I'm adding. So backing up for me personally, in my example, I do 3 days a week for about an hour at full body strength training. So I would leave that unchanged. Again, I'd probably change up my programming stimulus, but the basic structure is going to stay the same. I currently play competitive pickleball 3 times a week, sometimes 4 times a week, and I play for a minimum of 2 hours, so 2.5 hours. So that's some cardio in there. And I'm currently walking 10,000 steps every single day. So I've got my steps, I'm playing a little bit of pickleball, so that's my cardio, and I got my strength training. That's really all I'm doing in the first couple of weeks. But over time, after a couple of weeks into this cut, I'm going to start adding in a little bit more movement, a little bit more of that calorie out part of the equation. And for me, that's going to be some sort of HIIT, that high intensity interval training. I really love the jump rope, so I'll get a couple of minutes of jump rope followed by 30 seconds of rest and then hit it again. I might do things like hit the stair climber at the gym after my workouts. I might add some unilateral heavy carries at the end of my workouts. I currently already do the carries, but a unilateral carry is just picking something up heavy, like a suitcase carry. You just pick something up heavy in one hand, holding it down by your side, and then bracing your core, keeping your shoulders straight, not dipping down on the side that's carrying the heavy object. You're just going to walk, and then you're going to switch hands and walk some more with it in the other hand. That's what I mean by unilateral carries. So I'd start doing things like that gradually over time, just adding a little bit more and a little bit more to that movement side, so that calorie burn side. But I'd be really careful not to overdo the cardio side of things, because remember that cardio, especially excessive cardio, is a competing signal for muscle. And since I'm already in this low calorie state, I don't want to overwhelm my metabolism. Keep in mind that my metabolism doesn't know that I'm on a diet and I'm adding in this extra exercises because I want visible abs for the summer. My metabolism is perceiving this situation as danger. It perceives this as food scarcity and high output demands, and it's scrambling to adjust to these new conditions. Hence the things like decreased mood, decreased libido, maybe weird hunger cravings that I don't usually have. These are all signs that my metabolism is trying to correct what it sees is a untenable situation. It has evolved to perceive food scarcity, especially food scarcity compounded with additional energy demands. That's a red flag for your metabolism. So my metabolism doesn't know that I'm just trying to build some badass abs and look sexy this summer, right? It's perceiving this as a pretty dire situation. Now, the final thing I do for exercise is I would be very, very, very intentional about my core work. Now, look, we do core work every time we do heavy compound lifts, things like squats and deadlifts. Let's see, bent over rows. All of these things work our cores. But here's where I'd really be piling on the crunches. I'd be doing tons of crunches. I'd be doing mountain climbers and planks. I'd be doing weighted crunches, all of those types of things. While the diet is certainly the most important part of having visible abs, I mean, look at a strongman contest. Those dudes do not have visible abs, yet they clearly have very strong abs. So we need that low body fat to have the visible abs. But having well-defined ab muscles is going to make that a whole lot more impressive. So when we lose the fat and we have well-defined ab muscles, that's really going to make that six-pack pop. Okay. So that's what I would do for nutrition. That's what I'd do for exercise in order to have six-pack abs by the summer. Now, for lifestyle, those of you who are OG listeners, none of this should come as a surprise to you. During this journey, we're going to need to be on point with our sleep, our stress management, and our hydration game. So for sleep, we want to sleep a minimum of 7 to 8 hours every single night. If you're not able to get a minimum of 7 hours of healthy sleep every single night, not Monday through Friday, but every single night, you're going to have a tough time building six-pack abs. You just are. It's going to be an uphill slog. So need to get that dialed in. Of course, we've done tons of past episodes on sleep. If you need some resources there, hit me up. I can point you to some older episodes that we've done. But you do need to dial in your sleep. Now, also know this. By the end of this, as we get closer to our six-pack goal, you remember I said in my example, I think I was eating 2,200 calories, starting to feel a little bit stressed, etc. Sleep's going to be tough, but I really want to do anything I can to shore up my sleep. Number 2 is I've got to be able to manage stress. Now, of course, yes, I have to be able to manage stress in the normal sense of the word, right? There's geopolitical events that are outside of my sphere of control, but they still stress me out. I got to be able to manage that. I got to be able to manage work stress, relationship stress, all the different kinds of being stuck in traffic stress. So I have to be able to manage all of that. But remember, your body doesn't discriminate against types of stress, and you've got lots. So, and again, I'm not just talking about getting triggered, reading the news or social media or work, your boss deadline, none of that, or I'm definitely talking about all of that, but I'm also talking about the fact that now you're in a pretty extreme calorie deficit. You've been there for a while. Your body absolutely perceives that as a dangerous stress. And on top of that, you're piling on now, maybe you're doing a couple HIIT sessions a week, or you've added 30 minutes of stair stepper at the end of each of your workouts. Know that while these are quote unquote good stresses because they're moving you towards your goal, your body's not discriminating, and it's just adding all of these stresses up. And that's why stress management and sleep are so critical here, because we've got to be able to out-recover that total load of stressors that we're putting on our body. And then finally, on the lifestyle piece, you got to stay hydrated. Remember, we're eating low calorie here. It's really important that we drink half our body weight in ounces of water every single day. And yes, that if you're serious about six-pack abs, that should be water. I mean, if it's a flavored water or something like that, I suppose that's fine, but it shouldn't be things like diet sodas or things like that, right? It should, for the most part, it should be water. You want to get good, clean water. You want half your body weight in ounces every single day. So there you go. Those are the steps that you'd need to take if you wanted to have washboard abs. And let's just say the next 10 to 16, let's just say the next 3 to 4 months. That's kind of reasonable. It's mid-March here. So by midsummer, you'd be rolling in there with pretty good looking abs. Again, provided that you met the prerequisites and that you were diligent in your journey to get there. Now, here's my final advice when it comes to specifically to the over 50 six-pack. My advice to you is to be a tourist. Having shredded abs is a fun place to visit. It's cool, they look great, but it's not a place you really want to live. And I will say this, while I did at the beginning of the podcast, I try to talk you out of going for six-pack abs, I do think it's a worthwhile effort. I think that if you're within striking range and this is something you want to do, I really do think that you should go for it. You're going to learn a lot about yourself and your body. But for me personally, it's just not worth the health and the lifestyle trade-offs to walk around at sub 8% body fat. Look, could I get to 7% body fat and stay there for a year or years? Yeah, biologically, physically, I could, but I think I'd be a miserable person if that's how I had to live. That's too low of body fat. It's not particularly healthy, and it would just be tough to stay there long term. Can I get to 8% body fat by this summer, walk around for a couple months looking good with my shirt off? Absolutely. And then slowly reverse diet my way back to quote unquote normal, healthy, get back to eating 3,200 calories, get back to being 11, 12% body fat, and just spend, the rest of the year that way? Absolutely. Absolutely, I could do that. And who knows, now that I've been talking to you guys here for, I don't know, how long have we been doing this? 40-something minutes? Oh, I thought this was going to be a short episode too, but there you go. Now that I've been rambling on all this time, I've half-assed talked myself into going for it. I was kind of I didn't really have plans on trying to get a shredded six-pack for this summer, but I don't know. I meet the prerequisites. It's been a few years since I've been completely shredded up. Who knows? Maybe I'll do it. At any rate, if you decide that this is a year that you finally get a six-pack, I say go for it. I'm here to support you all the way. And I just ask this. If you do decide to go for it, please make sure you send me a picture when you reach your goal. Okay, that's our show for today, folks. If you are interested in checking out one of our professionally designed, age-appropriate functional strength training programs, I'll throw a link to those in the show notes for this episode, and you can find those on whatever app you're listening to this on, or head over to silveredgefitness.com/239. As we wrap up our time together today, you can show your support for this show in two important ways. The first is to tell a friend about this podcast and encourage them to give it a listen. The second is for you YouTube folks to click the like and subscribe buttons, and for you podcast folks to please give this podcast a 5-star review on whatever platform you listen to podcasts on, and be sure to subscribe and follow so you don't miss future episodes. I really appreciate you spending your time with me today, and until next time, stay strong.